how to do these lovely multicoloured woven visible mended darns. I'm going to talk you through what is meant by yarn weight, and I am going to show you how to set up what are called warp and weft threads, and these will be what form your darn. So first of all, quick word about yarn weight. So most of the jumpers you buy from the shops are machine knitted, and they are mainly fine gauge knits like this one. So they are machine knitted with 1-ply yarn. So this is 1-ply yarn, this is 1-ply merino, and it is super fine, suitable for machine knitting. And this is what your garment is made from. Now the problem comes when, if you want to mend these, the yarn that you can normally buy from the shops is hand knitting yarn, which is much thicker. So the normal kind of hand knitting yarn is double knit yarn, DK yarn. That is 6-ply, so that is 6 times as thick as this. If you tried to darn this sweater with a DK yarn, it would just look really clunky because it's just so thick compared to the yarn in the jumper. So a top tip, if you do want to use yarn that you have, so the other thing you can use is embroidery thread. If you wanted to use embroidery thread, which actually does darn quite nicely, this is also 6-ply, so it's got 6 ends of this thin yarn in it. And I would actually split it down into 3 lots of 2, or even into one end. So just pull one end, just split it out and pull one end of the yarn to darn with, 1 or 2, and that would be the right sort of weight for this. It's kind of, you kind of do it by eye as you kind of get to know a bit more. Obviously I've been machine knitting for a long time, so I'm kind of quite used to yarn weights, but 1-ply is the ideal. If it's a bit chunkier, so this jumper here that I'm mending, I've been mending for my mum, is fine gauge in the middle, and then it's a slightly thicker weight for the sleeves and the cuffs. So I would then put 2 ends of my merino if I needed to mend the sleeves and the cuffs, 2 ends of this together. So that's what you can do. You can kind of split them down into less plies if it's from a hand knitting yarn or from embroidery thread, or you can ply yarns up that you have. I have got some 1-ply merinos that I'm selling through my Instagram at Sarah Elwick, so come and have a look and see if there's any there if you want to do some mending on some fine gauge knits, because it really does make a difference if you mend with finer yarns. So now to get on to the mending. So we've got our hole here. I just want to show you one I've already done. So what I do, and this, you don't have to do this, is I put little, you're going to do the square kind of round the edge, leaving a border, so that we're really covering all the yarn, sorry, covering all the jumper and the hole, so there's no edges kind of poking out. I leave a little stitch as a kind of border, you can see that, but you can just start on the square like that. So you know, have a go. It's not always so super easy when you start, but you know, you'll get better in time. So the first thing is deciding your colours. On this one, I'm using this kind of mustardy yellow, a purpley colour, and I've actually got a few old darning packs that belong to my granny, so I'm using a kind of paler grey as well. So to start off with, you want to get your yarn and just knot it at the bottom, just because then it doesn't slip through, and that will really help you to keep an eye on things while you're doing it, because you don't want to be trying to hold the end of the yarn while you're doing it. So knot your end, and then to do this little border, you're kind of trying to put a stitch, let me try and get that under the camera, trying to put a stitch maybe 1/2 centimetre away, then put that stitch back in, so it's literally a couple of millimetres, and then go through again. Now the thing that you want to try and look out for in knitting, and this takes a bit of time to get your eye in, but have a look at the thing you're mending, you will see there are vertical lines running down the knitting, and this is the stitches just form in these kind of rows or channels on the machine. So you have got straight lines to work with, so that's what you're trying to aim for. Pull that through, and then you leave a long float that's going to go across. So again, you might want to look and just check that you're getting this straight. It doesn't matter if it's not perfectly straight, and when you start you might not be able to do that, but just try the best you can. So sort of line it up with the channel on the jumper you're looking at, and then put your stitch in again. So you're going to go in, out the back, and there's your first row. So what I'm setting up here is called your warp threads. So warp threads comes from weaving terminology. So when you weave, you put your warp threads onto the loom, and you thread it up with all of these vertical threads onto the loom, and then that's what you weave your weft stitches through. So we're stitching in warp threads over our hole, which is then going to form a base that we can then stitch into. So then you go back down, have your long float over where the main bit of the hole is, then come out and go back down again. So you can do as many of each colour as you want. There's no kind of set way, and I would say when you're starting, I mean, you could just start with one colour, so you could do all the warp threads in one colour and all the weft in another, just to get used to it. What I did was a kind of mixture, so I've done like two yellow, 2 purple, 1 grey, 2 yellow, 3 purple, 1 grey. It doesn't matter to an extent. I mean, the neater you are, the neater it will look, obviously, but I think it adds a bit of character even if it's not completely even. So then what I would do, so I've done 2, I'm leaving a little gap of about 1/2 centimetre, and then I am stitching another yellow one. Now this saves me from rethreading it the whole time. I'm going to try and come out. So this is now we're going over the hole, trying to make it as square and as straight as possible where the stitches come out, and go back in. Like so. And then you just carry on doing those yellow stitches or whatever colour you've decided to use across. Let me just bring that up to the camera so you can see. So I'm just gonna carry on with that now. Okay, so now I've set up my yellow warp threads. I then want to add in some purple. So do the same thing. I knot the bottom, and then I put that through from the back. So you're going in through the back, do a little teeny stitch at the edge, then go in about 1/2 centimetre, and then leave your longest float over the middle, and then come out the other side again. Now remember, this all takes practice. So you know, I've been machine knitting for a long time, so this sort of came fairly naturally to me, but it may take a little while for the penny to drop with all of this, and that is fine. You know, just practice it and to try not to get too stressed about it. So then come in again from the back, little stitch, leave your long float over the top, and then in through the bottom. So now I've got 2 purple stitches, and I'm going to continue with that now. And then finally, I'm going to add my third colour, which is this pale grey. And I'm just going to do a few rows of this just to add just the extra colour. But you know, it's up to you how you do it. You don't have to do 3, you don't even have to do 2. You can just do one colour. When I started darning, I'd do all the warp threads in one colour and all the weft threads going horizontally in another. So starting with literally one way, one the other. So, but that's the same principle. So you're just going in, leaving a long float over the hole. And this is what's going to create your patch. And then I just wanted to show you how to fasten the yarn off at the back. So, hold on, last bit, last thread. Okay, so you go into the back, turn your work over, and then you literally just sew into a little bit of the yarn, not going all the way through, and then pull your needle through the loop and knot it, and you can do that a couple of times if you want to secure it. And then that's now safe to just snip off. Okay, so now we have all our lovely warp threads set up, ready to do the horizontal or weft threads. Okay, so for the weft threads, you just do the same thing. You thread up your needle, put a knot in the end, and go in through the back. And now we're going to create this kind of woven structure through the threads that were the warp threads that we put on there. So you'd go in at the back, do your little stitch, and then come out again right up to the edge of these warp threads that you put in. And now this is the bit where you want to try and do a kind of over under. You can buy longer darning needles, and I would recommend getting one of those, because then you can actually probably just do that on the needle and it can be easier to see sometimes. So I'm just going to go over, under, or I've done it the other way around, under, over. Doesn't matter which way you do it for the first row. And it also, I would say, even if you slightly mess it up as you're doing it, it's not the end of the world. I've done that on some of these patches and it still looks really nice. So there you go, over, under, and then you're trying to keep it up to that edge that you started on as much as possible to keep it nice and neat, because if this sort of creeps down here, you'll get some big gaps. Go through. That, and then I'm going to go back again with the grey, so we do a little stitch at the edge, and then you're going to try and do the opposite that you did before. I'm just going to turn this round, hopefully you can see it a bit better. Okay, so I did 2 in the same way there, so there's 2 under, over, and just do the best you can. As I say, whatever you do, and if it's in a slightly different order, it just looks like a slightly different pattern. It's not going to look bad or wrong. I think with mending, especially if you're trying to do something like this, which is visibly mended, it's important not to worry. You know, the people can be very perfectionist about it, and I think, you know, just know that you're trying to enjoy the process of the stitching as much as anything else. Okay, so I'm going to then I'm going to leave a little gap. I'm going to do another row, in kind of in the middle. It's twisting up. I'm just going to let that do that. Okay. So let's just do that best we can. And then push that through. It gets knotted up, just untangle it. Okay, there you go. And then I'm just going to carry on in the same way. I'm just going to do grey and purple in the horizontal threads. So I'm just going to carry on doing that. And there you have it. There's your finished visible mend. And I'm really pleased with how this jumper is looking now. I think these are looking really nice. And I've got one more to do and then it's finished. So good luck with your mending. I'd love to hear if this video's helped you and any projects, see any projects you've managed to tackle. Good luck.